Sport is an important part of society. It brings communities together, as well as keeping individuals fit and healthy, both physically and mentally. While there's a strong history of female sporting achievement in most cultures, women's sport tends to be viewed as secondary to men's. Slowly, however, this attitude is changing as societies come to appreciate the extremely high quality of elite-level women's sport, as well as the benefits for women in sport generally. In this programme, we'll take a broad look at women and sport. We'll look at why is participation in sport so important for women, the history of women in sport, women in community-level sport, elite-level competition, and programmes, policies and organisations for women's sport. Fitness and exercise is a key component in preventing lifestyle diseases and staying healthy. For both men and women, exercise can reduce the likelihood of heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, osteoporosis, and some cancers, as well as help to maintain a positive mental approach. For women in particular, fitness is of great importance in regards to the menstrual cycle, pregnancy, and menopause. Weight-bearing exercise is a particularly beneficial form of activity as it helps to develop good bone strength. As the muscles contract and lift the weight, they pull on the bone and that stimulates it to get stronger. Importantly, by building up bone strength early in life, the weak and fragile bones associated with osteoporosis may be avoided.
So the old saying that use it or lose it really applies to our health. But I take that back a little bit more, that we need to build it when we're young so we can use it when we're an adult, so we don't lose it when we're older.
Weight-bearing exercise also helps to develop muscle mass. This leads to a faster metabolism and weight loss. Controlling weight has several health benefits.
If we put on too much weight and we become overweight or obese, one, it puts a lot of stress on our joints, and therefore can contribute to the breakdown of our joints and lead to what we call osteoarthritis. Two, by being overweight or obese, it can contribute to that buildup of the blood sugars, which can lead to the diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes is a serious condition caused by the body's inability to process glucose or blood sugar effectively. Left untreated, it can cause blindness, heart disease and kidney failure. A healthy diet and regular exercise can help prevent this condition. Exercise and regular sport can also help prevent cardiovascular disease in two ways. First, as the heart is a muscle, constant exercise keeps it strong and capable of working efficiently. Second, exercise can reduce the level of bad fats in the body, known as low-density lipids, or LDLs. LDLs build up in the arteries around the heart, causing the arteries to become narrow. Constantly straining to pump blood, the heart gets weaker, eventually resulting in heart failure. This is particularly important for women, as only 25% survive for 1 year after their first heart attack. Men's survival rate sits higher at 38%. There are, in fact, several health conditions specific to women that are well treated via good levels of sport and exercise. Research indicates that physical activity and strong muscles can reduce the discomfort of premenstrual symptoms.
For pregnancy, it actually starts beforehand. What they're finding in the research is that if you're overweight or obese, it's a lot more difficult to become pregnant. And what we're seeing is that doctors are now encouraging women to lose weight before they even become pregnant.
Two conditions that may affect pregnant women, gestational diabetes and preeclampsia, or high blood pressure, can both be improved via activity and exercise during the pregnancy. Between the ages of 45 and 55, women's menstruation ceases and the reproductive system shuts down. This is known as menopause. Associated hormonal changes can cause hot flushes, mood swings, and insomnia. Research indicates that good bone, muscle, and heart strength may alleviate some symptoms of menopause. Fitness and activity can also reduce the likelihood of heart attack and breast cancer that may occur during the ageing process associated with menopause. Importantly, however, sport and exercise can do more than just prevent physical disease.
Playing in a team sport, you have hundreds of friends that you meet and that you enjoy playing with. Not only do you learn, I guess, about friendship, but about supporting each other and, being positive and encouraging each other to try and achieve, that one goal that, might be just to win that game that day. When you're at school, you tend to study so much and you forget about the benefits of physical activity because you're so worried about getting great marks. But in actual fact, getting out there and doing exercise refuels your body and, so much more ability to learn because your body is refreshed and ready to go again.
Physical fitness and exercise can reduce the chance of heart disease, high blood pressure, osteoporosis, diabetes and some cancers. Physical fitness assists in alleviating discomfort of premenstrual symptoms, as well as maintaining good health during pregnancy and menopause. Physical fitness also assists in maintaining a positive mental outlook. Up until quite late in the 20th century, sport was largely seen as a man's domain. During the ancient Olympics in Greece, women were largely not allowed to watch, let alone compete. This outdated ideal was carried into the first modern Olympics in 1896, in which no women competed. As late as 1956, the 800 metres event was out of bounds to women, as it was considered to be too difficult, potentially damaging a woman's physical health and reproductive capacity. Attitudes to women's sport changed during the 1970s, when the United Nations and other international groups promoted the positive impact sport had on women's lives, physically, socially and emotionally. The change in social perception was reflected in the creation of several organisations around the world, all designed to promote and develop women's sport. Most notably, the Women's Sport Unit as part of the Australian Sports Commission, as well as the Women's Sports Foundation in the UK and the United States. As part of this change, in 1991, the International Olympic Committee declared that any new sport seeking admission into the Olympic programme must include women's events. The official backing of women's sports has contributed to huge advances. Since 1980, the women's world record for the marathon has been improved from 2 hours 45 minutes to 2 hours 15. In the same period, the best men's time has only been improved by 10 minutes. Interestingly, the improved status for women in the Olympic movement has not necessarily translated into more people wanting to watch professional women's sport, and limited popularity means limited payment for players.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, is the money involved in women's sport. It's tough for women out there, not just in netball, in hockey, in basketball, in every women's sport.
Let's look at the professional women's golf tour. Prize money on the tour is only 10% of that offered on the men's. Now, why would this be when the quality of women's golf is very high? The answer may lie in the social stereotypes surrounding women. In the 21st century, the role of sporting hero is one society still feels more comfortable bestowing on men.
It'd be hard to argue there's not a hero status in a lot of the men's sports, a lot of the professional men's sports. I mean, if you look around Melbourne or Sydney or any of the big Australian cities and you see footballers, people flock to them and they know who they are, they have the profile because they're on television. That's one area where women are on the back foot a little bit, and that comes back to the fact that there aren't so many professional sports available for women to play.
As we'll discuss later in the programme, limited social acceptance of women's sport leads to limited TV coverage, and that leads to limited revenue for women's sport. Women were not permitted to watch or participate in ancient Olympic Games. No women competed in the first modern Olympics in 1896. Attitudes changed in the 1970s via initiatives put forward by the United Nations. Governments in Australia, UK and US established specific women's sports agencies. Prize money in professional women's sport is generally much less than men's. society is generally more comfortable with men as sporting icons. Community sport gives men and women an opportunity to play sport in their local area with local people in a supportive, friendly environment. Community sport can be particularly valuable for those women who choose to be stay-at-home mums, as it creates an opportunity to make social connections outside the home.
People are often looking for something, and sport's a great structured way of finding something that fills a gap or gives them an opportunity to be involved and find something interesting to do on a daily basis or a weekly basis with other people.
Importantly, community sport provides an environment which is open and welcoming, giving all women in the community a chance to get involved.
They'll still play doubles with me, come out and have a hit with me, you know, they don't say, oh, the old, bag, But now I still get games every Sunday. We came up and no one seems to discriminate with the age with me. I find the lessons and the learning so enjoyable, and the company too.
The acceptance of all comers in community sport creates an ideal opportunity for participants to improve their skills, get fit and feel good about themselves. For women in particular, the largely non-competitive environment of community sport can create a positive feeling of safety and security.
We run a Monday morning session for women only. So they can actually come down, have a hit with their peers where they don't feel threatened with the competitiveness of the boys around them, I guess, or the men around them. So in terms of that, it takes away that threatening atmosphere of sport and takes away that fear factor and keeps them involved.
An added benefit of non-competitive sport is that it can be treated purely as a means of personal development, whether that be physical or mental development. Swimming is a particularly good community-based sport for mental relaxation and injury rehabilitation.
I've taken it up more specifically recently because I'm about 4 months pregnant, so I'm trying to engage in more activity that I can do as I get heavier and less mobile. I want to keep feeling fit and limber, and it's been recommended for pregnancy. Certainly another thing I get out of swimming is a sort of meditative quality. I'm not a big team sport player or aerobics class person or anything like that. I actually quite like the solitude and the peace of just swimming through the water, and on a summer's day you get the sun coming through the water. All you can hear is a splash and you get snippets of sound coming from the world around you. It's actually just really peaceful.
Most areas are well served by community sports organisations, funded by local councils or the members themselves. Getting involved is usually quite simple.
Firstly, they could go to their local government body and make inquiries as to what's available. I think another great way is through your social network to ask and inquire about what's on in your local area. So word of mouth is obviously a good way. You could certainly go to your state or government body that's involved specifically with the sport that you're interested in, and they should be able to direct you to something that's close for you.
Community sport creates an opportunity to connect with people in the neighbourhood. Community sports are quite often non-competitive. This may suit women who are threatened in an all-male competitive environment. Community sport is useful for injury rehabilitation and personal development techniques such as meditation. Community sport can be accessed via getting in touch with government departments, local sporting groups or just word of mouth. Whether male or female, to become an elite level sports person requires an intense level of commitment and years of training. For most elite sports people, the desire to succeed is set at an early age.
I love sports. I watched everything on TV that I could that was sporting. It didn't necessarily have to be female role models. I think just seeing people achieving their dreams and achieving their goals. Growing up I remember watching Susie O'Neill and Ian Thorpe just winning their races and just thinking how amazing they've worked so hard and they've finally achieved their dream.
Sacrifice is a key element of elite sporting success. While friends and family may be relaxing, the training continues for the men and women who wish to reach the highest level. In many cases, however, elite sportswomen face challenges their male counterparts do not.
You know, already in our teams, like, we have to deal with, you know, some of the older girls dealing with when they're going to start families in their life, and I think that's something that obviously male sport don't have to deal with. And a lot of girls try and fit their netball careers in, trying either, you know, in between having families or fit their netball career in before. So we've lost, you know, a lot of players in the Australian team because they want to go on, you know, and start a family, and so we don't always have the strongest team that we could have had. That's just an issue obviously all women face, and it's not just in sport, it's in every career as well.
Perhaps the greatest challenge facing some elite sportswomen is the limited ability to derive revenue from their chosen sport. For example, the world champion Australian netball team does not receive payment for playing. Many of the team members must balance a day job with a gruelling training schedule. The reason for this is simple. For most sports, payment for players is derived from the money associated with media rights. As most women's sports have a limited media profile, there is most often little funds available to pay them as professionals.
Funding is derived from advertising. Advertising is determined by television coverage, and in the modern day, since television, typically there's been more sponsorship and more funding allocated to men's sport.
Recent statistics indicate that 44.6% of players in organised sport are women, yet women's sport only receives 1.4% of the sports broadcasts on radio, 2% of television coverage, 6.8% of magazine coverage, and 10.7% of newspaper coverage. To understand why, we need to look at how our society is conditioned to depict men and women. Generally, men are seen as the aggressors in society, and their sporting achievements sit comfortably with the ideal of male strength and power. Women, however, are often culturally defined as playing a more passive role in society. For this reason, female sporting achievement may work against the stereotypes surrounding women, and it may not be readily accepted.
People certainly look at us and think, why are you guys doing weight training? Or why do you guys, you know, do all your pre-season and, you know, spend every night training? They can't believe how much we put into it. And at the end of the day, we're exactly like any AFL club. You know, we put in as many hours as they do into our training, but we unfortunately have to do it before or after work because we all need to work as well to earn the money.
While women's sport may not demonstrate the same level of strength and speed as men's, the level of skill required is identical, making for a fantastic viewing spectacle. This is reflected in the decision by the Wimbledon Tennis Club in 2007 to bring the total women's prize money in line with the men's. The level of public interest in women's tennis is very high due to the quality of matches, and accordingly they deserve equal payment. For men and women to reach an elite level of sporting performance requires commitment, sacrifice, and years of training. Elite sportswomen face the additional challenge of taking time out for childbirth. Limited media opportunities for women's sport means limited opportunity for payment. Society is generally conditioned to see men as sporting heroes. This outdated stereotype is slowly changing as women take on more dominant roles in society. Throughout the developed world, government bodies and special interest groups have taken it upon themselves to develop and promote women's sport. Much work has been done in examining why girls turn away from sport once entering their teenage years. Research indicates that teenage girls can feel insecure in sports clothing, and that concern over gaining overly muscular bodies can turn growing girls away from sports participation. Specific sports bodies also play their part in promoting women in sport.
Netball Victoria take out different coaching programs through schools because it tends to be the age, you know, I think of like 15 to 18 where a lot of girls stop playing sport. And that's where I think we need to pay a lot of attention to. Kids, you know, from a very young age will always play sport, I feel, but it's keeping them in that sport for a long period of time that's hard. And, you know, Netball Victoria do a lot of work in getting different coaches, getting us as elite players to go out to schools and to promote the sport that way.
Similar initiatives have been established in other parts of the world. In the United Kingdom and the United States, the Women's Sports Foundation has worked to develop women's sport at both community and elite level. Gradually, these schemes and programmes are contributing to an increased awareness of the broader social value of women's sport. Across the world, women's sport is slowly finding its place as a dominant force.
Things are getting much, much better, and I think that corporate support is increasingly coming around to supporting women's sport, because there's no doubt now that I think that people can see, corporates can see, government can see, social welfare is benefited, I think, when people are fit and healthy, and if young girls have role models that they can see on television and hear talking and meet and greet and actually touch and feel, then it might inspire them to spend more time being active.
Around the world, government bodies and special interest groups work to promote and develop women's sport. The Australian Sport Commission's Women and Sports Unit offers financial incentives, conducts research and implements policy so as to promote women's sport. In the United Kingdom and the United States, the Women's Sport Foundation also works to develop women's sport. Attitudes towards women and sport have come a very long way since the Olympic Games in Greece. From being denied entry as spectators to the ancient Olympics, women are now a major force in the modern sporting movement. This has led to better physical and mental health for women, as well as a richer, more equal society.